Hello. Um, so, I'm sorry it's taken me a fair few days to get part two of this video out. I've been having some problems with my webcam, so I've just decided, screw it, I'll just record without the webcam. So yeah, um, last time I read part one of my absolutely awful and cursed childhood story, so I'm going to read the other half now, which is part two and three. Um, Yeah, I apologise again in advance. It's just very bad. Okay, so let's go for it. That night, as Grace lay in Byron's arms, she could feel it watching her. It snaked its way down the stairs. She could hear every creak. And then the door flung open, but nobody stirred. Grace watched as the figure glided slowly around the room, and she listened to the laughter that filled the air. And then the blanket that covered her and Byron flew up into the air and into the wall. "Byron!" Grace screamed. Byron awoke. "Grace, where's the blanket?" he asked in an annoyed tone. "Over there." Grace pointed to the wall on the other side of the room. "What's it doing over there?" Byron looked confused. "He lifted it and threw it," Grace muttered under her breath. "Who? Sean? Oliver? Who are you talking about, Grace?" Grace looked at Byron with scared eyes. "The man, he was in here. He was laughing at us." Grace stood up with a puzzled expression on her face. "Grace, you are probably dreaming." "Grace, where the fuck are you going?" Byron yelled, smashing his fist into the wall as Grace wandered out of the room. The others awoke from Byron's yells, and they lit their lamps. "Byron, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing? And where's Grace and Sean?" Jessica muttered. Grace went off upstairs. "Sean must have gone with her," Byron said, shaking his head in disbelief. "What's wrong with that girl?" Oliver shook his head. "She said a man was in here," Byron muttered, still perplexed about the night's events. "Oh my God, what if she did see a man in here, Ollie? I'm so scared." Abby huddled close to Oliver. "See what your stupid girlfriend has done, Byron, huh? She's gonna pay for this. Fuck, she's gonna pay for this." Jessica stood up. "You guys, I'm gonna go and check if they're okay. Any of you guys wanna come?" She looked at Byron and Oliver. "Why, are you two chicken shit?" Oliver asked with a laugh. "Fuck you, Ollie," Jessica answered, laughing to herself as she ascended the stairs. Grace had walked up the stairs and looked in every room, but the man was nowhere to be seen. She couldn't believe she was walking around in this creepy old house on her own. Then she heard Jessica's voice. "Grace, Sean, where are you guys? Hello?" Grace looked down the corridor. There was a big, heavy-looking door half hidden in the shadows, so she began to make her way towards it. The knob turned easily, but the door was locked. No matter how much she pushed it, Grace could not get the door to open, so she gave up and began to make her way back. "Oh, Grace, there you are. Where's Sean?" Jessica put an arm around Grace and gave her a small hug. "I don't know. Wasn't he downstairs with you?" Grace felt perplexed. She felt like she was dreaming. Her mind was still asleep. "Jessica, are they up there?" Byron's voice echoed. "Grace is, but I don't know where Sean is." Jessica looked at Grace, and Grace noticed the fear and worry in Jessica's eyes. The two of them went down the stairs. At the bottom was Byron, standing in nothing but a pair of black boxer shorts, his gorgeous body fully exposed. Grace felt pleased that he was hers. He was absolutely perfect in every way, and it was a mystery to her why he wanted her out of all of the girls. Byron could have anybody, and he wanted Grace, who was just another average person. Oh my God. Ah. He hugged her close. "Grace, where did you go?" he asked, holding her shoulders approximately 10 centimeters away from him and staring hard into her eyes. "I followed the man," Grace answered. "What man, Grace, huh? Who are you talking about?" Grace looked around, all of the eyes looking at her expectantly. "What about Sean?" Jessica asked. "I haven't seen him," Grace spoke quietly. "What? So he didn't follow you up the stairs?" Oliver spoke now. "No, I was alone. I haven't seen Sean." Abby began to cry. But Oliver, who hated people crying, just sat beside her. He put his arms around her thin body and put his hand to her cheek. Abby, please don't cry. We're going to get out of here. You hear me? And Sean, he probably couldn't sleep, so he tried to find a way out, and he did. He's probably searching for help right now. Abby stopped crying. I hope so, Oliver. I really hope so, she whispered under her breath. I just want to say, if Sean has found a way out, why wouldn't he just go to the others and say, guys, look, I found a way out? Why would he run up to get help? There's so many plot holes in the story. I don't even know why I'm questioning it at this point. Okay. Grace was captivated by the congeniality of Oliver. I think I must have used a thesaurus there. He was always so malicious, but now he was acting almost human. Jessica stood at the bottom of the stairs and started to yell, Sean! Sean! Where are you, Sean? Grace could see the tears building up in Jessica's eyes, but she didn't cry. Guys, I'm going into one of the upstairs rooms to sleep. I want to be alone, Jessica said with a forced smile. I'll come with you. Abby stood up and made her way up the stairs with Jessica. Do you want me to come too? Grace asked pleadingly. Jessica's like, I want to be alone, and then everyone's like, I'm coming too. Yeah, Grace, we could have a girly sleepover. It'll be so fun, Abby perked up. But before Grace could answer, Oliver grabbed her arm and Byron cut in. No, we have to speak to Grace, but you two go ahead, Byron said, gesturing for them to leave. Jessica and Abby stood on the stairs looking at one another cautiously. But we want her with us, Jessica said. Tough shit, Oliver said, pulling Grace into the main room. Will you be all right? Abby yelled after them. She'll be great, Byron yelled back, and they closed the door. Poor Grace, Abby said, making her way up the stairs. What do they want to talk to her about, Abby? Jessica asked in a panicky tone. I haven't a clue, Abby said, and the two girls disappeared up the stairs. Grace finally struggled free from Oliver's grasp. What are you doing? She yelled. I want to go upstairs with Abby and Jessica. Now let me out. She tried to open the door, but Byron blocked her way. She looked up at him. His expression was sarcastic and unfeeling. Byron, let me out, she begged him, tears of fear slithering over her eyes. The pair of them stood in the doorway, watching Grace's fear burning up and smiling a wicked smile, getting pleasure knowing that she was scared of what they would do next. Grace, don't be scared, Byron said. We just want to talk to you, okay? Byron tucked Grace's hair behind her ear and took her hand. Okay, what about? Grace muttered fearfully. Sean, we want to talk to you about Sean, Byron said, letting go Grace and resituating himself beside Oliver. Look, I don't know where Sean is, okay? Grace said, almost whispering. Are you sure? We won't tell anybody, Oliver said. I can't believe it. You think I did something to Sean. The boy stood there watching her. Did you? Byron spoke up. No, Byron. You know me. You know I'm not like that. Byron smiled as he sat on one of the beds, namely Jessica and Sean's. You slept in this bed with Sean, didn't you, Grace? He asked mockingly, his frown becoming rather aggravated. Well, yes, but only because I didn't want to sleep in the same bed as you, Grace said, suddenly realizing that her words sounded rather spiteful. Did you do it with him? Byron was no longer smiling. He was now looking rather hurt, but the anger was still there, clear as daylight. Byron, you were my first, you know that, Grace screeched in amazement. Byron was now suspecting her of cheating. Byron fell silent. Grace took a seat beside him and put her hand over one of his. Byron, please don't be cross with me. I didn't do anything, I promise. I never even thought about any of the guys until I met you. Maybe sometimes I'd see a guy walking down the street and I'd think he was hot, but never did I think about them like that. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. God, this is so awful. It's making me cringe reading it. Okay. So Byron is the only boy you ever wanted to do it with, Oliver said with a wicked grin as he sat beside Grace. Yes, Grace said, looking at Oliver with a tearful expression. Then why did he leave? Oliver asked. Did he leave because you killed him, or because you were having an affair, and he knew that me and Byron would kill him? Oliver had an evil expression about him. None of those things are true, Grace expressed. Liar, Oliver yelled, and then, oh my God, and then he punched Grace in the face, and she fell on the floor, but she didn't cry. She lifted her head and saw that Byron and Oliver were whispering quietly to each other, so she got up and ran to the door. No, you don't. Byron slammed his hand against the door, so Grace made her way to another one. As she twisted the knob, Oliver laughed loudly. It's locked. They're all locked, Grace. Byron, please let me out, Grace cried, tears rolling down her face. Grace, why are you crying? Byron asked. Oh, my Lord. You said you loved me, Byron. Grace fell to the floor, crying loudly. Byron sat in front of her and began to kiss her in his hard and aggressive way. No, Byron, not here, not now. Grace stood up, and then Byron grabbed her arms and held her as Oliver came to them. Tell us about Sean, Oliver yelled. I don't know what happened to Sean, Grace yelled. They wouldn't listen. She didn't know for the life of her what happened with Sean. Then Oliver stood in front of her with a wicked look in his eyes. I'm going to slap you again and again until you tell us about Sean, he snarled. Byron, please, she begged again, knowing her pleas would do no good. Grace, just tell him, okay, Byron said. I just want to say, I don't know why they have it in their heads that she, murdered this boy. Although, to be honest, there's so many, little plot holes in this. So many weird things, like the locked door upstairs. I guess when I was writing it, I must have thought to myself, oh, this is going to happen in the locked door. And then I just completely forgot and abandoned the whole idea. And now it's just become this crazy mess. It's so funny. No, Byron, that's it. I'm not going to go out with you anymore. You're a wanker. I hate you, you pig. Grace wrangled free and ran to the door. Because Byron was a bit shocked and had let his guard down, she managed to open it a little. Jessica, Abby, help me, she yelled, as Oliver grabbed her by the hair and pulled her back into the room. Little bitch, Oliver hissed, slapping her around the face. Grace clawed at him with her nails, scratching his cheek and making him bleed. Fuck, Grace, look what you did, you fucking crazy bitch. Grace began to cry. Byron grabbed her arms again and held her as Oliver looked at her wickedly. Jessica and Abby sat on a bed, and Abby looked at Jessica sadly. Jess, I wish Abby was here. I'm really worried about her. Jessica looked at Abby with concern. Do you think Sean is okay? She asked. Abby looked at Jessica, seeing her fear. She gave a reassuring smile. He'll be fine, Jess. He'll be fine. Jess smiled and patted Abby's shoulder. You're great, Abs. You know that? Abby gave a modest smile, opening the door. Look, I'm going to check if Grace is okay, she said. You're really worried about her, aren't you? Jessica sighed, rising to her feet. You don't know Oliver and Byron like I know them, Jess. They aren't nice. Byron seemed so sweet and nice, but in reality he's much worse than Oliver. I don't know when he's ever seemed sweet or nice. Just saying. Jessica made her way to the door. Look, Abby, they're just talking to her, okay? That's all. Abby looked down and then back at Jessica. No, Jessica, Byron and Oliver never just talk to somebody. Trust me. They heard it then. Jessica jumped out of her skin, and the two girls hurried down the stairs. Jessica, Abby, help me. It was Grace, crying out in fear and pain. Jessica burst through the door, with Abby at her rear. The pair was sickened to see Byron holding Grace down as Oliver poked needles into her arms. Her face was covered in bruises, and her nose and mouth were bleeding a lot. Oliver, Byron, what the fuck are you doing? The boys stopped and looked at Abby and Jessica. Grace stood up and ran to them. They hugged her as she cried into their arms. Fuck you, Oliver, Abby yelled. Oliver grabbed her and pulled her over to where him and Byron were standing. Abby, don't be disrespectful to me. You're my girlfriend. Abby shed tears of fright and nodded her head. Say it, Abigail, Oliver hissed, grabbing her hair and making her cry with pain. Oliver, let her go. You're hurting her, you bastard, Grace yelled. Oh, like I'm going to stop because little Miss Nobody tells me to, he chuckled. Let her go now, Jessica said sternly. Byron began to laugh. You gotta get past me first, he sniggered, standing in front of Abby. I don't know why they're just like beating everyone up. It's just so random. I guess that's how you know they're villains. I'll let her go if she says it, Oliver said to Abby, smiling at her. I'm your girlfriend, Oliver. I'm your girlfriend, she cried out. Oliver let her go. Now, Abby, we can stay in here. You can stay in here with us and be safe for the rest of the time we're trapped here together, or you can go off with them. But I hope you realise you won't be safe at all if you do that. It's your choice, Abby. Jessica and Grace looked at one another, knowing that Abby was a weak person and that her own safety was at the top of her priority list. I'll stay with you, Ollie. I love you. Abby held on to Oliver's arm, giving guilty looks to Grace and Jessica. Abby, you can't do that, Jessica yelled. He's a violent pig. You know it. I know it. Now come on. You don't need him. You know what kind of person he is. He beat up your best friend, Abby. Jessica was so angered by Abby, she took Grace by the arm and they made their way to the door. She deserved it, Byron hissed behind them. Fuck you, Byron. You're not going to get away with this. Neither of you are. Jessica put her hand out to close the door, but it slammed shut on its own, and when she tried to open it, she realised they had been locked in from outside the room. Part 3. Oh my god, what the fuck just happened? Byron pushed past Grace and tried to open the door. I bet it's that fucking Sean, Oliver spat through clenched teeth. He banged on the door. Sean, you little prick. We'll get you back for this. We'll fucking kill you, you hear me? We're going to kill you. Sean wouldn't do this, Grace gasped to herself. No, he wouldn't, Jessica agreed, putting a hand onto Grace's shoulder. Who the fuck do you think it was then, Grace? Her? Mrs. fucking crazy bitch who likes to wander around in the goddamn garden. Grace gave Oliver a dirty look. Don't talk to me, she muttered in fury. Oh, Grace, don't be like that. We've had such wonderful times together. We don't want it to go sour just because of your inflexible ways now, do we? Oliver put an arm around Grace's shoulders, but she pulled away from him. I hate you. You make me sick, but nobody in the whole wide world makes me more sick than Byron, she spat, turning to Jessica and taking his seat beside her. Me? What the fuck? Byron sat down beside Abby, as did Oliver. So, Grace, I make you sick, do I? I really make you want to spew, huh? So why is it that I make you so sick, Gracie? Byron asked, rising to his feet and looking at Oliver for a second. I think you need therapy or something, Grace, he sniggered. Look, Byron, you're never going to find anybody when you act like this. Nobody who loves you anyway. Grace's voice sounded sympathetic. You loved me, Byron whispered. I did. Grace looked carefully at Byron, but I could never love you now. She felt bad saying it, but he had to know. But you still love me. I could see it in your eyes, Grace. I love you too, you know. That's why I did this. It was for you. It was all for you. Grace frowned. What was for me, Byron? Getting us locked in a spooky old house, which, by the way, is not empty. The owner has locked us in here, and is going to probably call the police on us. And then you watched and helped as your friend beat me up. If you think I've had a good time here, Byron, then you're really sick. Byron walked over to Grace and sat beside her. Grace, I love you. She looked in his eyes, and her brain suddenly cluttered with images of Byron with a knife. And then the voice of the woman she'd spoken to, filled her brain. Grace, ignore him, Grace. Ignore them all and you'll be safe. Grace shook her head, trying to clear it from the awful images and voices. Byron, you used me, she said, her voice shaking from her heartache. No, Grace, I never used you. I just got a little carried away, that's all. Oh my God. It'll never happen again. It was a one-off thing. Grace looked at him thoughtfully. Grace, he's lying, Jessica muttered. Look, Jessica, go away, okay? This is none of your business, Byron said with a sigh. Jessica walked off and tried to pick the lock with Abby's nail file. Look, Grace, I really want to be with you, and I have a really important thing to ask you. Close your eyes. Grace closed her eyes, and when she opened them, oh my God, Byron was kneeling on the ground, holding a ring in his hand. Will you marry me, Grace? He asked. Grace gasped and then smiled, throwing her arms around Byron. Are you serious? Oliver asked sarcastically. I just want to remind you that they're 14 and 15. I've never been more serious in my whole life, Byron grinned, looking at Grace hopefully. So is that a yes? He asked. Grace smiled. Yes, of course. That was the moment everything went blurred. There was a really loud banging noise, and everybody disappeared, except for Grace and Byron, who stood in the middle of the room, holding on to one another close by. A strong wind blew, and 5 mysterious women all came drifting towards Grace. Their hands were stretched out towards her. Grace, we warned you, but you didn't listen, and now you're lost. The voice was soft and echoing. Grace turned to see 5 weird men on the other side of the room, all ghostly but not at all looking like the women, and Byron was walking towards them. Evil is tempted by evil, one of the women spoke. We were all tempted by evil too, another spoke up, and then Grace turned and saw the look in Byron's eyes. He looked so nasty and malicious, and when he noticed her glance, he gave a sinister grin. And Grace knew she too had given in to evil. Jessica threw her arms around Sean. Oh, Sean, I knew you'd find help. I knew it, she cried. Abby hugged Jessica and Sean, and when Oliver put a hand on her shoulder, she spat in his face. Bitch, he muttered, wandering away. Where's Grace? Sean asked. Her and Byron were rushed into hospital. They collapsed, Jessica said with a shrug. A policeman entered the small interviewing room. I'm sorry, he muttered. Your friends didn't make it. Looks like they stopped breathing just before the ambulance came to you. Abby, Sean and Jessica looked at one another tearfully, not knowing what to say or do. Grace looked sadly out of the crack in the board that covered the window of the room. Byron sat on the bed holding a sharp knife in his hand. Come here, Grace, he said, laying the knife down upon a small table at the side of the 4-poster bed. Grace sat on the bed beside him, and as he put an arm around her and held her close, he whispered into her ear, I told you this room would be ours. The end. So yeah, that is the end of my terrible childhood story. It's so full of like these weird sort of, I don't know, I guess I was going for something and then I completely forgot about it, abandoned it, went for something else, and then it just turned into this like crazy random mess. Nothing makes sense. It's just completely insane. And I've actually realised something. I don't know why, but all of my childhood stories, like pretty much every single one that I wrote around this age, the main character always dies at the end. I don't know what the hell that was all about. Every single time, without fail, the main character will die in these weird stories that make zero sense. But yeah. So that amused me when I found it, and I hope that some of you enjoyed listening. And yeah, so thank you ever so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye.